Hello, it's your Gen X Big Sister here. And today I'm going to talk a little bit. What am I going to talk about? No, I know what I'm going to talk about. I just forgot what I was going to talk about. So, what I'm going to talk about is new beginnings. So, I've been talking online a lot lately about taking a grown-up gap year, taking some time and space out of away from your life to figure out what's next or to utilize in whatever way that you want to experience joy again, to get healthy again, like whatever. And I wanted to share a little bit about my experience with this about over 3 years ago. Um, in May of 2022 is when I left my corporate executive career. Um, I had been planning for it for a year. I had a year prior to actually making it happen. So in early 2021, um, I had come to the conclusion that I could not continue the path that I was on. I was living in Southern California. I was living in my dream location in Laguna Beach, California, which I had aspired to live there, and I was living there. I had an amazing job, and I had friends, and I was living in a like just a beautiful place, and I was miserable. I was stressed. I was unhealthy. I was struggling with menopause. I was struggling with grief. I was struggling with the grief that came with menopause, mainly coming to terms with the realization that the blueprint was not happening for me. I was not going to be a mom in the way that I thought I would be a mom. And so, in terms of like being a partner or a wife, that was like secondary. So, that was like a side thought, but it was leading to a lot of depression, a lot of grief, a lot of like, I didn't have things that I was looking forward to. I was fearing aging like to a huge degree. I couldn't even think about like I hated even thinking about the age that I was at, which was about 54 when I started making the decisions. It was 55 when I actually made things happen. Um, it felt old, and I couldn't even. I trying to think ahead and plan ahead. Um, Not even an option because I couldn't, it was just fun. I felt, I felt like I had lost the game of life, like that I had played really hard and that no matter what I did, like that I failed in all of it. It didn't matter that I had successes in other areas of my life. It didn't matter that I had achieved great professional success. I had a lot of amazing relationships and friendships. I had many great loves in my life. I have had lots of children in my life in various ways. None of that mattered. I have traveled to phenomenal places. None of that mattered because I was depressed and I had a lot of grief. And a lot of it, I was channeling a lot of the grief and the frustration and the depression and the anxiety and the unhealthiness all at my job because I felt like my job exacerbated my condition or situation. Um, I because I was working, I mean, I was living and breathing my job, and it wasn't bringing me joy anymore. Especially after COVID, and during COVID, my roles and responsibilities changed in such a way that it was not, it was no, it wasn't joy filled. I mean, I was dealing with making COVID decisions and protocols and all that, you know, baloney, all that stuff. Um, so what seemed obvious to me is that I was not going to heal while staying in that job. And I couldn't afford to leave the job because I lived in Southern California. And I'm a single income. and it was very expensive. So I knew in order to leave my job, and I wasn't in the state of mind to just get another job because I felt like that was like a frying pan into a fire kind of a thing. It was, I knew that that wasn't going to do it. What I craved was a break, rest. I craved rest. I craved silence and stillness. I felt like I needed clarity. I felt like I needed the time. I needed to be taken care of, which I had not been for decades and decades. I had taken care of myself and been doing it independently and strongly on my own. So I knew I had to leave my job. In order to leave my job, there were a lot of things that needed to happen. I couldn't live in Southern California in my dream town, in my dream place. I needed to give that up, even if only temporary. I needed to bring my monthly expenses down to the minimal amount that I possibly can, um, which I did. I sold off or donated the vast majority of my belongings, and I had to go back east. And the reason I had to go back east, because the other thing that this required is I needed to be comfortable asking for some help and support. And I was lucky enough to be able to store my stuff with my brother and sister-in-law and stay with them for a couple of months while I figured things out. And this literally was intended to be a 3-month sabbatical rest, where, I temporarily did not have to pay to put a roof over my head. I minimized my expenses as much as I could, and I would take the time, and I gave myself 3 months to not pressure myself into generating any kind of income. I did have some savings. I had been working on that for the past little over a year before that to figure out what did I need to be able to afford to do this with no idea or expectation of what I was going to do at the end of the 3 months. Get another job. Maybe I would be in a clearer state of mind and have a better idea of where I needed to go. That's not what happened. My 3-month sabbatical was a healing summer for me. I took those 3 months and I took road trips to go visit people that I hadn't spent time with in a while, people that I love. So I got to spend quality time with them. So I took a lot of road trips. I was outside in nature a ton. I really did a lot of inward work to find out what brings me joy. So I was revisiting a lot of things from my childhood. I started kayaking. I started really getting into music. I started journaling. So it was just a time and a place to just spend with me and to figure out what it is that I wanted. And the only thing that I was super crystal clear about at the end of that 3 months was that I did not want to get another job. I loved the freedom of moving around from place to place and spending time with different people that I love. And I loved the idea of the freedom of being an entrepreneur once again. I had been an entrepreneur a decade previous. But I felt like I had a little more wisdom under my belt this time around in how to approach it. So I was clear that I wanted to do that. The only tangible thing that I was crystal clear about was that I wanted to launch a podcast because I wanted to speak to women like myself over the age of 45 who are living a life outside the traditional norm. I called that podcast Blueprint Breakers. I didn't call it that right from the beginning. It got renamed. I called it the Modern Elder Woman in the beginning, and I got a lot of resistance to that name. Women my age did not want to be considered an elder woman. So I changed it to Blueprint Breakers. And my inspiration for doing that was to talk to women who were navigating this period of life and didn't think that the resources and the help and the support really spoke to them. Because I know that when I was looking for support as I was going through perimenopause and menopause, there were a couple of things that were not addressed for me. Some of my bigger challenges, going through those symptoms while being a single woman and trying to like date or meet people is a very unique set of challenges. And going through it as a woman who was childless, not by choice, is a huge layer to this process that was not being talked about. And I was facing massive amounts of grief from that. And so I wanted to make sure that I covered all the different topics that were important to women my age, through the lens of someone who doesn't have a partner and or doesn't have kids. Now my mission expanded over time, but that's what started it. So I wanted to talk about this today just to share a little bit about my pivot story. I did take some planning. I didn't intend to go fully nomadic right from the beginning. That's what it evolved to, but that wasn't my intention from the jump. My intention was to just take a break. And I know many of you are thinking about taking a break. And I absolutely think you deserve it and you need it. And there is a way to make it happen on some level, in some way. It's just a matter of how do you carve that out for yourself. But I think we all need that stillness, that silence to hear our own thoughts and hear our own desires to figure out what's next. So stick with this series from Your GenX Big Sister, so I can share a little bit of my own experiences, but I'm also going to talk about many of the topics that have resonated for us Gen X women on threads, other online forums. So please be sure to subscribe, follow, whatever the word is, so you are notified when additional episodes come out. And I'd love to hear from you. Are you thinking about taking a break? Are you thinking about like a month, 3 months, a year? I've been talking a lot about taking a gap year, sabbatical. What are your thoughts? I know that there's a lot of challenges and obstacles in the way, but before we even talk about that, I want to hear, is it something that you're considering? And if you're willing to share why, I'd love to hear that too. Talk to you soon.